Who says that? What black man says?
Someone who doesn't believe you would say.
It's gaslighting.
Like, I'm sorry you experienced that as that. And it was shortly after he had been pushing her and kind of questioning whether or not it was race related, was kind of like, a black woman would have been mad if you corrected her too, and not really hearing the point of like the way in which this was blown out of proportion is the issue. And the way in which none of the black people around me would name that it was blown out of proportion was an issue.
It was, and he did it another time when she gave an example about kind of having issues with some white kids, and she was like, she asked him point blank, do you think that they were racist? And he said, well,
turn up. Yeah, I still wanna turn up.
Someday I'm gonna sing this like as a joke, and I'll be the intro.
Please. Hello. Wow. It was the
wet. Yeah. I have the headphones on too. Hi. Should we just jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Do the first Reddit.
Sorry, hold on. My eye's having a seizure. Does your eye ever do that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't. Oh my God. Hold on. Okay, it's gone. He checks all my boxes.
Sorry, the way you just sprung into action after that was something else.
I'm nothing if not on. He checks all my boxes, except one, sex. LOL, it's me who wrote this.
Me realizing I pulled up the wrong Reddit. Keep reading.
My boyfriend and I are in our mid-20s and have been together for 3+ years. He is such a wonderful partner and checks all my boxes, except one, sex. For most of our relationship, I've been the one primarily initiating sex, including sexting, dirty talk, fantasies, new sex toys, etc. Yeah, you guys, I authored this. And driving what we do in the bedroom. This is challenging for me because a large part of what turns me on is the feeling of being desired and wanted. Jesus Christ.
You know what's funny is I've never read this because Gabe picked
I was going to say, you're such a bitch.
I didn't read this, I swear.
I picked this one.
Did you not?
I wasn't sure if I felt this one. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I picked the other two.
This must have been the random one I didn't read. Sorry.
You're both my enemy. That's a big missing piece in our sex life, given the only time we have sex is when I make it clear that I want it. In December, we got into an argument about exactly this issue. He expressed 2 reasons why he thinks this is our dynamic. 1, he doesn't feel like he is a sexy guy. He's objectively hot, so that's confusing, and doesn't feel natural when he's trying to, quote unquote, seduce me. This helps explain why the sex is great when I'm leading it, but not good when I want it to be led. His sex drive is really low. Said he only thinks about sex about once every 2 weeks. At the time,
do you believe him?
I have thoughts about this.
Okay.
At the time, he was working a stressful job with long hours and thought this might be impacting it. Excuse me. He asked me to give him time to see if this would resolve itself. Flash forward 4 months, he has a new job and a lifestyle that should lend itself to a higher sex drive. He still initiates despite my efforts. I've tried a lot. For example, I bought a costume to live out his biggest fantasy. Sorry. I waited a week to see if he would ask me to wear the costume. He didn't, so I finally surprised him wearing it. Yeah, he hates you.
Wait, he knew it existed.
Yes.
And then
didn't ask.
She waited a week. He didn't ask to see
it. And so she surprised him with it. The sex was great, and I know he enjoyed it, but he still didn't initiate.
How does she know he enjoyed it?
I know. Before we went out with friends one night, I put on a hot outfit I knew that he loved. I told him I wasn't wearing underwear and everything, and I was excited for him to do it, for him to do me when we got home. Despite this, he wasn't sexy about it while we were out, and we didn't end up having sex that night. I feel like I've exhausted what I can do, and I'm tired of feeling unsatisfied. I expressed this to him a couple of days ago. He's torn up about how it impacts me and assures me that he thinks I'm sexy and only wants me. He says he feels broken and doesn't know why he's like this. He tried to initiate yesterday and it didn't go well. I felt like he was trying to seduce me because I was sad and not because he wanted me. The sex felt disconnected and half-hearted, so I asked to stop. Ugh.
Been there.
Yeah. Today I told him I wanted to take sex off the table for a couple weeks. The hurt around it is too fresh right now for me to enjoy the sex. I also want to take the pressure off him to give him space to figure it out.
First right move you've made this whole email, girl.
Yeah.
Literally.
He's starting with scheduling a blood test to get the testosterone levels checked. This is the first time I've experienced this in a relationship, so I'm looking for any tips, advice, or outside perspectives. Thank you in advance. I have a little bit of 2 minds because that's me. Aren't we all used to me playing both sides of the fence? I skipped ahead a little bit before. I didn't read this, but I read the comments a little bit, and people are giving really she turned the comments off for this post, which I thought was interesting.
Oh.
But the comments, people were actually helpful, like seeing a sex therapist or like, maybe your libidos can be different. advice is sound. At the end, she kind of saved him with like being like, he like seemed like, you know, he wanted to take steps to figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, I'm definitely like, I'm side-eyeing a little bit.
Side-eyeing him or her?
Or him.
Why?
Side-eyeing him because it seemed like he was like the rejection piece is hard. And I feel like that people who with like low libidos, if that's what it is, like don't realize that. Like rejection is hard. It doesn't feel good. And she didn't really tell us like if he had given her reasons or not. Like he was just kind of like rebuffing her. And so when I hear that, I'm kind of like cheating or like just not interested or like some misogynist shit. Like my mind goes to patriarchy. On the other hand, he might really be like, might have really been busy. He might be fucking depressed. Like there could be like a myriad of reasons why he doesn't want to have just sex. And like, it's also okay to like maybe not have sex all the time. Like when you're in a long-term relationship and you're fucking tired, maybe, I don't know. How long did she say? How often did she say they were having sex? Like twice every week or something? That's not bad.
I feel like
it's all really vague to me, and I don't like.
I feel like if this is an accurate reflection of how many times they've talked about it, they did each other a disservice by not talking about it for 4 months and just hoping it will resolve itself. I think that was like a terrible decision.
Yeah.
At the same time, it seems like having the conversation has made it a thing. And once sex is a thing and you feel like your partner is keeping track of how often you have sex and watching what you do, it is awkward.
Yeah.
It does take the joy out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he was like having joy in it before, but like I think that she could have picked one thing to not like rather than being like, because she's like, it's your sex drive. She's talking about frequency. She's talking about, I think people do this often, like with kind of a different example would be when I talk to kids about school, I really break down like there's like 5 different parts to school. Like school's not just like one thing. There's like 5 things I could like talk about or different areas, right? And I feel like with sex, like it's overwhelming when anybody comes to you and are like, so like all the 5 things, like there's like 5 things I don't like about our sex. And she's talking about it like it's just one big thing, but it's not. It's not. She came up, she told him, I don't like the frequency. She made a judgment about his sex drive, which I think like talking about it like it is just like this stagnant thing is always a problem. Like sex drive changes and goes up and down. She doesn't think that he initiates enough. She doesn't like how he initiates and she wants him to be more creative. That's a lot of feedback.
It is.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But also you can't give that feedback and then not talk about it for months. And now you're at your wit's end and you're having this conversation about how this is impacting your self-esteem.
And now wanting like turn around really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. You have to pick a thing.
Right.
What's the thing? Do you want it to be more often? Do you want it to him to initiate when it happens? And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just feel like she's making it personal, which is so not hot.
It's so not hot. And I'm identifying with her because I think I was in that situation. Like I had that dynamic and it felt like there was like power dynamics, like
and maybe there is for him too.
And so I'm definitely projecting some of that, but
my daughter is having an affair. Okay.
This one's great.
I'm excited.
I wanted you guys' answers so bad on this.
My daughter is having an affair with a married neighbor. I told her she needs to move out of my house. Oof. Last week I caught my daughter, 21, leaving our neighbor's house early in the morning. I was getting a drink around 3 a.m. and watched her leave their house, and she snuck across the yard and went through our basement door. Our neighbor is married and probably 30. I assume his wife was gone for the night as her car wasn't there. The next morning, I went down to my daughter's room and confronted her. At first, she denied it, but she eventually said that she has been sleeping with him for a couple months. I lost it at that point and yelled at her, telling her he is married and she is helping to ruin a marriage. Oh. I told her that she needs to tell the wife or she needs to move out. Damn.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to tell her to stop.
Mom
tell the wife
super harsh.
Yeah, and she's 21. She's a baby.
Get killed.
She is clearly upset and thinks I'm overreacting. My wife is also thinking I'm going too far. Oh, it's a man?
Yeah, I misread that.
Oh, okay. My wife also thinks I'm going too far. Okay. I get that the neighbor is the main issue, but I'm really disappointed in my daughter. She knows his wife and he even babysits for them. Is telling her to confess her to move out too far. She babysits for them? As in, like, she's been around for how long?
Yeah.
Yes. So grooming, maybe?
Yeah.
I feel like if I
And dad is giving like religious, judgy, like you're a whore. Like this is what it's giving. Like
it
that's
is
why he's
giving you're a
mad.
whore, and
Yeah.
I feel like maybe concern for why she's making poor choices like this would maybe be the route that would probably get you what you
And he
want,
seems surprised.
which is to have a daughter who behaves with what you would dictate as self-respect, and tearing her down is not going to get her there. But
Right.
you go ahead, Dad.
Right.
Edit. Well, thank you all for responding. I'm sorry I couldn't respond to more of you. Some context I failed to put in here. My wife is very upset.
Wait,
She
did you
isn't-
read the best? You didn't read the rest. I just shot a text to my daughter and apologized.
I am reading it. I didn't get there yet.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I was reading above.
Some
Sorry.
context I failed to put in here. My wife is very upset. She is inciting the affair. In fact, she was cheated on by an ex. She understands this better than I do. I think that is a big part of why I'm so angry. My wife is also a better person than I am. She's the only reason I'm the man I am today. I have too much respect to let people even anonymously insinuate that she is the problem here. I should have done a better job in explaining her side. Any comments saying anything bad about my wife will be met with a big fuck you. Writing all this out and reading comments has been incredibly helpful. I haven't changed my mind, but it's made me think about the situation more, especially looking at the future in my relationship with my daughter. I just shot a text to my daughter and apologized for my anger and asked her to go get a drink with me tonight and talk. I told her I'm sorry I didn't ask how she is feeling. I need to get my composure back before my next work call here in a few minutes, but will continue to read and reply to comments as I have time today. Oh yeah, alcohol should definitely be involved when you're rageful and already overreacting.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to keep it light and casual and like clearly trying to play the like I can be a dad and like stick to my values, but I don't know. Just going to put thoughts here instead of commenting. Wow, so many comments. While yes, I may be seeming to be backtrack a bit with reaching out to my daughter. I don't see how that is bad. She is my daughter and I love her so much. For those who think she would stop talking to us if we kicked her out, I raised her to be independent and accept consequences of her actions. It's hard to explain our relationship, but I know she wouldn't stop talking to us if we didn't force her to move. She also would figure it out as she's a smart woman. She would love out of our house, not our life. I'm always her dad. I'd live. On that note, this is the dad writing, not the mom, as some of you have thought. Also, not worried about violence from my neighbor's wife, Gabe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Unfortunately, she's a very sweet woman, which makes everything worse. But I wouldn't put my daughter in danger. I confirm my daughter hasn't told the husband we know. I will be watching his behavior as I'm not sure how he will react. Last thing is I find it funny. I was drinking water, not alcohol, when I saw her. I woke up and went to the kitchen and saw her from the window, but I appreciate the links to AA. Oh, because he said I was getting a drink at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
Fuck
did.
you guys. Judgy.
Literally.
I really should have made my original post longer. Sorry for all the edits. I'll update after I talk with my daughter. Update. Sorry I didn't update this last night. Forgot there were basketball games on and fell asleep washing. Thanks, Dad. That was such a dad comment.
It was.
Very
I went out for drinks with my daughter. It was awkward at first. We just talked about work and her schooling for a while. It just felt nice to talk about normal things for a bit. At some point, she just asked me if I was proud of her. I almost broke down when she asked that. I said, yes, I am proud of her, though I'm not proud of the mistake that you made. I talked a bit about why what she did made me upset, but that nothing could ever make me love her less. She told me more about how she got involved with the neighbor. I won't share too much. It's nothing terrible like many of you are assuming. Sure.
Yeah.
They knew each other as they had her babysit their baby over the last year. One night she was out with friends and ran into the husband at the bar. That's when things progressed and the affair started.
That's
During
weird.
this time, she was going through a breakup that was rough. I knew she was going through a lot, but didn't realize how bad it was. I told her that she is an adult and responsible for her own actions. I don't want her in my house doing things like this. We talked about telling the wife. My daughter is scared to tell her. She isn't sure how the husband will react once the affair is out. I'm going to go with her tomorrow while the husband is at work and tell her together.
Oh.
My daughter also wants to move out. She said it's something she has been thinking about before, and now she said it would be awkward with this being in the open. She started to cry about how she didn't realize the damage she was doing, knowing that she is the other woman and helped to break or at least hurt this marriage. I also talked about her mom and her past and what she was done to her. That's about it. We cried together, had tough discussions. Tomorrow we will let wife know, and I'll help my daughter move to my sister's place for a while. I told her things will probably get worse before they get better. So kind of, I would say, like, as it continued, I felt less judgment.
Me too.
Just
I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't read it all the way through like that.
well, he probably
Keep
edited
strong
since you
gut
sent
reaction.
it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually, I'm sure he did because
Yeah.
I did read it. But
Yeah. I'm sure he did. And it was kind of nice actually to get the ending.
Mhm.
But I think the thing about it that felt like really rigid at the beginning was it felt like he was more concerned about like what happened to the wife and possibly like what was going to happen with his daughter. But I think as he progressed, it seems like he just has very rigid values and like is, I guess, trying to teach her accountability. It's not how I would do it, but I don't know. I think I can imagine a dad being pretty devastated by this. But I guess yours wouldn't be.
Truly like a worst nightmare. Like, I mean, like for me, for whatever reason, this one hit me as like, and I know this isn't the end of the world. Like, I know it's not. I'm just saying for whatever reason, when I read this, I was just like, that would fucking suck. I mean, that's your neighborhood you live in. Like, that's not something you get to just like, right. Like that, they're probably going to get a divorce.
I get mad about it. I would definitely be mad about it. I'm not like understanding of like, but it's like, don't shame her like the cheating. It's like a bad decision in like so many other ways. Like, like she knows that cheating is wrong. Like
I blame him more for that.
Yeah.
Like that's his issue more so. Like you'd hope your daughter would have more character than that, but also I didn't show that.
I think that's exactly where it is, and I think that's where the judgment comes in. It's like the dad sees that as a failure of character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Do you find it as a failure of character? Do you think you would have had this insight at 21?
Nope. No. I would have done it.
Yeah.
Happily.
Doing stuff like this at 21.
I wouldn't have did it.
You wouldn't have?
No.
Now, I wouldn't have at 21, but that's only because I didn't have access to it.
I can't say who
I don't know.
here, but there was like I've done that before.
You've done what? Slept with someone married when you were younger?
Yeah.
Was there something about it that was exciting?
Yeah.
What was exciting about it?
I can't say on here.
Okay.
Because people would know.
Was it that it was wrong?
Well, yeah, it was wrong.
But is that why it was exciting? Because it was wrong, or was it exciting because you enjoyed the person? Do you know what I'm asking?
It was exciting because it wasn't exciting because no, it was not exciting because it was wrong. It was exciting because
the circumstances?
Yes.
Okay.
Like where it was happening and like how it was happening and like
how long did it go on for?
Not long.
Okay. I'm just kidding because to me
Maybe
that's
like,
also it factors in. If you just do it a couple times, like it is more forgivable.
It was like maybe not even like 6 times.
I thought it was gonna be lower than that. I actually don't judge you, but I'm really curious because I don't know who
Have I
it
never
was.
told you this?
No.
Oh, I'm surprised.
How old were you? Roughly? Early 20s?
Yeah, I was still at DePaul.
Did you?
So before I was 21.
Did you think, this always is curious to me, did you think you were the only person that they'd done this with?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
You knew you weren't special?
God. Oh, no. It was oh, God, no.
Do you think she thinks she's special?
This woman?
Yeah.
Yes, the daughter sounds like she thinks she's special.
Or thought
She's special.
No,
and I never was like.
But you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, I feel like.
No, I never thought there was something about me that made him want to like fuck me.
Risk his marriage.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Really?
No.
That's hard. That's almost hard for me to believe.
I was new and I was young. I was just like the new, like it was just, it could have been anybody else.
But you were still excited.
Because he was like, I can't say.
Don't say it.
I'll give you more context. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So how would you guys parent that? Like, this was my big thing is you go, how do you raise a daughter to not have that or to have more character, I guess, than that? Like what did this parent do wrong, do you feel like in the background?
Maybe nothing at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like this feels like a normal mistake. Like this.
Normal?
Yeah. Because I feel like
it's kind of age appropriate.
Weird,
but like
I just feel like
what's happening here?
I think the worst
thing is bad judgment.
I think the neighbor's the worst part.
Yes, I think
she was
so too.
babysitting for him. She knows the life.
And not been a neighbor. Like she could have just been the nanny who was fucking him and coming across town.
It's still bad.
Which is still bad.
Working for someone is still bad. And I feel like when I think of normal, I think of common. Like I feel like if it's commonly happening, like there's something to that being a way that people like explore and do shit. And I just like, I never like underestimate like how special the girl felt in the moment when
like imagine meeting him out. She supposedly met him out in like a random place. Like he chose her in her mind. Like no, but like why was he out with like where young 20? I don't even know how old this guy is.
30.
30, but like
They'd be in the same
which is
space.
young, I guess.
I don't know. I just don't think it's abnormal. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it was a good decision.
Agreed.
I think it was self-sabotaging.
Agreed.
Because it puts her in a position that's very uncomfortable.
Mine was too. Mine totally was self-sabotage.
I think it, yeah, you're screwing yourself over.
Yes.
So like all of those things are bad, but I think like to say that like this is a like reflection of how she will like turn out when she has a fully formed brain at 26, I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
I think the optimal thing to do, well, here's one thing I think you could instill in a kid, which is that like you could be a parent who shows a lot of respect to the other parent and like is a very like kind, understanding person with integrity. Like I think being a model of what you want your kid to be is like the best way for them to become that way. So I think that's one. I think two, like modeling like empathy, but also some form of like accountability is like the way to handle this so it doesn't happen going forward. I don't think the job is to make sure your kids don't make mistakes. I think it's to help them navigate those mistakes and not make them again.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I was reading at the beginning,
there's a lot of judgment.
It just came across that like this is going to change your relationship with her forever because of the amount of judgment you're going to have, and like she's actually going to like become more reckless and have like more hate for men. But he pulled it together.
Yeah, he did. At least it sounded like it.
Sounded like it from his perspective. Any more questions, Gabe?
Yeah. So I guess because I feel like look, I think it's totally normal for a 21-year-old girl to have an affair with even like a married man who she met at the bar, right? It is the fact that it's shitting where you eat. It's the neighbors. It's like that's a big fucking bad decision. That's not a little one to me.
But I think the worst part of the decision is that she put herself in harm's way, not that she was fucking somebody she worked for's husband.
Yeah. And it was somebody that they knew is the part
to
that's
me, like, I don't know if she owes this woman. I mean, if she really has only babysat this 1-year-old, I mean, she's known her for less than a year. I don't know if she gives a fuck about this woman or this neighbor at all. I'm not saying it's the right thing.
Like, if she were fucking, like, her boss at the restaurant, would he have, like, he would care, but would it matter like this? Or if she was fucking, like, somebody else's boss who was married, like...
Right. No, it wouldn't. Yeah. Like, is this a white thing? Am I doing this, like, where it's, like, an image, like a family image thing?
I just think it's like a...
I'm saying that's how I feel.
I think it is an image thing. I think
the family.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
But that's not about character.
Yeah.
That's about you feeling embarrassed that your daughter behaved poorly.
She's a hoe.
But that's...
My daughter's a fucking hoe.
But you don't think
I know.
But it's optics. She embarrassed you.
Yes. No, of course.
Which is more about him than about
But that's about you.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay.
But we are a family and we represent each other. It's not like if I'm like take my dick out at the bar and go, hey, it's my decision. It doesn't affect you guys.
But how 21 is it to think you wouldn't get caught?
Right.
Oh, I totally listen. I am super forgiving of that aspect of it. It's just even as reckless as I was, there are certain lines. The reason I got away with stuff is because I knew not to do the major ones. What?
I get that you have enough intelligence and self-preservation to not to shit where you eat. But
sort of.
Come on.
No, you're right.
Come on.
You're right.
Come on.
I think, like, it's
hard to imagine your daughter doing it. I get that.
Absolutely.
I totally get that the thought of your little girl doing something like this that's so unboundary, that's so, like, what the fuck are you doing? But it is kind of, like, age appropriate and, like...
Stop saying that.
It is. Developmentally, that you make
if your daughter's not fucking at 21, we got issues.
We got issues.
No, I get that. I don't have a problem with that. It's just
and fucking inappropriate people. That's the age to do it. Not when she's 30, not when she's 40. Like fuck the inappropriate people earlier on.
The thing that you guys have taught me, or like in a big way, is or made me aware of is the whole like I didn't realize how guys making the girl feel special was such a big thing when they're the age things.
It's everything.
It's everything.
And now that you say it, it's like I see it everywhere, you know? And it's just, it's like, can you parent against that for a daughter to make her feel like that?
Don't do what my parents did and make me feel like everything was hinged on like
make her feel special and like she has unconditional love because no boyfriend will ever give her unconditional love. So there you go. You win that out.
That's easy. I can do that.
Yeah. Secure attachment immediately.
Yeah, immediately.
Especially for women.
I'm not looking outside for validation because I'm full because my parents think I'm the best.
The best thing ever. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, I can do that.
I can do that.
Attainable.
No, for real. That's not.
But if you think about how men talk to their little, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, and little girls don't get that as much. You have to earn it.
So
Don't make her
that's
earn
so
it.
interesting because it makes me think of
Don't make her earn it.
sometimes I get paranoid that I overdo that stuff.
No.
No, you're not.
Okay.
That's just a
Never.
reaction to how you were parented.
How I was raised. Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Way to go, Rachel. Let's right to it. All right, let's get this last one in.
I'm gunning to see clients. My brain is like not like I'm.
You miss
She's
dying.
on fire.
Oh my god, I
Yeah.
miss it so much.
That's great. I'm happy for you.
I love this one. It's a slow burn, but I love this one.
It's a slow burn. I also missed potting. I have so much energy for today.
Yeah,
I missed
last
it
week
so much.
I felt last week Rachel
I
was
fucked
too
it.
busy, and
I
I was
fucked it
just like,
over.
we can't make this work.
I know.
It's all right.
My husband won't let me take more than 2 showers a week. They're white. I told him I told him I need him to stop or moving out for a while. I got it. This has to be some kink shit.
I don't think. First of all, I don't think this means that they're white because this is like
no,
I
I
don't
know.
feel like
I was
this,
being.
I feel like this doesn't fit into like any culture. Like this is.
I agree. I was
No.
joking because it was
He's
like dirty.
controlling. That's the main issue. Isn't that it's it is fucking.
It's
nasty,
not racial.
but it's
No,
not that
there's
it's
not a
nasty.
racial
It's no. The main issue isn't that it's nasty. It's that it's controlling. This is the most controlling shit I've ever heard.
Big time.
You're controlling my grooming. So I don't have to hear the rest to know
Mm-hmm.
that this motherfucker's off.
It's crazy.
Off.
I can't wait. I'm so glad I
Her take on it's so
no, I want to read
rational.
it. I want to read it. No, no. This is the weirdest thing my husband has ever done. Oh, great. So he's a weirdo in general. He really is a sweet and loving husband, and I love him more than anything. I just want to say that whenever you read that sentence, just know there's abuse. He's the most this, I'm the most this, abuse.
Our relationship perfect, but
Exactly.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Divorce is not an option.
healthy
Abuse.
relationships know that their partners got some shit they need to figure out, and they love the fuck out of them
And it's
anyways.
normal. Divorce is not an option, just to put that out there before the comments come in. Don't even suggest it because that's what my friends and family say, and I've already told them I'm not leaving him.
Exactly.
So I'm not laughing at her.
I've gotten this response before.
from me.
No, not from you.
I literally came to you and was like, I'm never leaving.
No, not from you. I didn't believe you for a second.
Good.
I've had other people be like, "Don't ever tell me to leave."
You didn't believe me?
That you wouldn't leave?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, thanks, friend.
I thought
She
you might
reads
leave.
you like a book.
I thought you might leave with the baby though.
I know.
Not
I
gonna
thought
lie.
so too.
We were gonna love that baby, but boy,
But there was gonna be some hard conversations.
There's gonna be some shit.
What a slog. My husband has always been a little out there. Okay.
He's weird as fuck.
He's a Hebrew Israelite. He's a hotep. He's a computer programmer and super smart, but also believes all sorts of things. I can't get through this.
Both real and conspiracy.
Lately, he has been very worried about the environment and global warming. Oh, I'm already reading this guy. He's like a health nut. My husband has always, about 2 months ago, he got real worried about water. Yes, water. He's concerned about the quality of water. He put in a new filter system in our house, which I actually love because it tastes so much better. I'm sure you do, bitch.
That was a rational response. You realized something about the water. You put in the
Water filter.
water filter. Now let's hear the unrational shit that you're about to do because
Exactly.
this didn't soothe your anxiety.
Exactly. But he is also concerned about how much water we use. Oh, fuck. Not because of money, but the environment. He created a new rule that we can only take. He created a rule, wild sentence, that we can only take 2 showers a week. Now, I'm someone that likes to shower every day before bed. I just don't like feeling dirty in bed. Bitch, you don't even have to qualify it. I feel you.
I want to shower every day, period.
Okay.
I want to shower every day, period. There's nothing else.
No qualifier needed, honey. It's okay.
I want to shower twice a day, period.
Right. This has created the most conflict in our marriage in 20 years.
You guys have been married for 20 years? Oh, you're in the deep end.
Oh, she's in
down the wormhole.
He's
what
obsessed with the
conspiracies
amount
does
of
he
water
believe
we
in?
use. It's like he's a red pillar.
Okay.
At first, I just ignored his rule, but he would shut off the hot water while I was in the shower. They're not fucking. I started trying to use the shower at the gym. But it's too much work to go every night with having kids. I honestly thought he would get over this within a month, but he is stuck on this still to this day. Last night, I really wanted to shower, but had hit my quota, as he says. I said I'm showering, that he better not do anything. But about 2 minutes in, the hot water turned off. I grabbed my towel and went down. We're fighting. Physically fighting.
We're throwing
I'm like picturing myself in my towel with my little thing, my hair thing on, walking downstairs. Yo, I have anger in my body. Last night,
It's a domestic.
I said I'm showering. I grabbed my towel and went down and started yelling, telling him this is the dumbest thing he's ever done. I also told him I'm moving to my parents if he doesn't stop this. That's it, bitch. Guys, I love this man. He is everything to me, but I can't take this anymore. Am I going too far and threatening to move out? No. Leave and leave faster.
So here's my take on this. I think that he is incredibly anxious. I don't know if he's abusive or not, but he's definitely incredibly anxious, and like he will continue to get more controlling the older he gets. People who don't challenge their mental health, it gets worse as they get older. So I'm not surprised he's getting quirkier and quirkier and quirkier. And you have probably accommodated him thus far, and he's freaking the fuck out. And you guys are having a power struggle because you won't accommodate him on this. I guarantee shower quotas was not the first thing. You've been accommodating for 20 years. Of course he's losing his motherfucking mind that you're saying no to something. This is also on you. You moving out in a backwards way is also accommodating because he still gets to get what he wants, which is his environment how he wants it.
Without you now, which is easier.
Are you taking the kids with you? Like, how are you doing this? But you don't want to get divorced. I will say this in my whole heart and body. Do not pull this bullshit and break up with someone for fake when you have fucking children.
Ever.
If you're not ever actually serious about getting divorced,
Don't do the power move.
don't do the power move. This is so stupid.
It's
You're
actually pussy.
Well, and you're creating instability in your kid's life because you can't fight it out about the shower.
Yep.
You need to fight it out about the shower.
Also, if he's like, he's like on this like little green kick and she's like talking about him like he's into conservation, it doesn't take long before you find shit about you showering does nothing to the planet versus these corporations that are wasting water and things like that. Like, that's the real issue. And like people might come with, well, what if he really cares about like the environment? No, that's the most it's like recycling. Recycling, like us recycling compared to everybody else is not a real like green issue. It's capitalism turned on us. So like, he's not even like it's giving compulsion.
And here's the thing, it is giving compulsion. And the other thing about it that bothers me, and this is what I will say, because I do have people in my life that I've lived with that are particular and do have rules about how they want to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be very clear with them, like, I will not be policed in my own home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel relaxed if I feel like you're watching me, whether that's for germs, whether that's for cleanliness with the shower, whether that's for using how many lights I use, like all of this stuff. Like, we all have things that we're particular about. We all have things that are quirky and weird that we do. You do not get to try to make the people you live with do them too.
Yep.
That's like not a thing.
If you like shit a certain way,
You do it. You do it.
You do it.
Why don't you shower once a week to make up for all my showers?
Right.
And that's actually the essence of what I was interested in this sort of too, is just the whole that people, because when you're married to someone and it's a long haul, they will change, and they'll change sometimes significantly. And it's like, how to deal with that is like, it's a wrinkle in marriage that I don't think anyone thinks about, and like look how weird that is, like a shower thing. Like, there's no way that lady would like.
There are things, I say this to couples when I worked with couples, that there will be one or two things in your relationship that will always be there. And you just have to learn to manage them and negotiate. You will never be able to squash them out. You might never see the right sides. You just know it's going to be a trigger point, and you just have to learn, you just have to help couples talk about it. That's in the best of situations though, where both people are willing to be compromising about that. But most people want to snuff out every single fucking issue. And it's just that's exhausting.
That's interesting. I've never thought of that though. That you just let it ride, kind of.
That's just one theory too.
I'm sure even you let it. Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that you have to let it go, but
exactly.
For instance, if you hate your mother-in-law is not going away until she dies, and are you
going to be an issue about it?
Are you going to be an issue about it forever? No, you guys are going to recognize the healthiest thing that you can do is recognize that your partner hates their mother-in-law and negotiate how much interaction they have to have with them. Mm-hmm. It's not going away. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to get that partner who hates your mother-in-law to come to every event you do with your mom. Yeah. So what can you do to compromise on this so that it's not an ongoing issue? Because what I think ends up happening is that people aren't honest. You don't have the conversation that I don't like your mom. Yep. You don't have the conversation that I feel embarrassed every time you don't come because my mom asked about it.
No,
none of that's on the table.
Exactly.
And so you're having all these blowout fights circularly around it instead of just getting to the point of is this something that we can just have be on the table that isn't going to be a blowout fight every time I want to go to her house for dinner on Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the things where it's you gotta just meet in the middle sometimes and acknowledge listen, whether you think it's right or wrong, this is where I'm at. and vice versa. And I feel like people won't acknowledge their individual differences, and they just start being like, well, that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship.
They start
well,
making
you're
a values
supposed
thing.
to make my mom feel comfortable. You're supposed to come to things no matter
Mhm.
what. And it's like, at what point are you going to choose like your partner over like the social norms because you're embarrassed?
Yep.
Like you have to pick
Wow.
one.
Yep.
And so like
Period. Speak on it.
people will come to family therapy thinking like, how can I convince my husband that he has to pretend to like my mom?
And what I say is, we're not going to do that. Well, actually says, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I feel like that's interesting. That's something I might be a little weak on. I might have a little blind spot there.
It's hard though.
It's super hard
because
when you're
fall
in it, you
into
don't see
ruts.
it.
No, you fall into ruts and you're like, no, you're doing this to me.
Mhm.
You're doing it to me, and you lose empathy and you lose, like, what is it? It's like you lose goodwill. I think that's what Gottman calls it. But like,
And I'm not saying that I do it to
No.
people, but I would be the
It's
person
uncommon.
going along, going
Oh,
like,
I've
well,
done
you're
it.
supposed to.
yeah,
You're
we're
supposed
supposed to
to.
it. Yeah.
Interesting.
And we all do it to a certain sense. And there's plenty of people who it doesn't fucking make them 10 out of 10 angry every time they have to do it. And they do suck it up and pretend they like their mother-in-law. But some people, that's just really not feasible. They really
Mhm.
don't want to do that.
And
Yeah.
they shouldn't have to.
And you have to have these conversations. And when you get to the root of the fact that maybe why you want this person to do it is because of social pressure from other people or embarrassment, I don't know if that's the right reason to fight this battle.
Right.
I don't know. Like, that's probably some personal work you have to do at 45 that you still give a
Yep.
fuck that your mom's going to make a comment about him not being there.
Yep.
Hey,
Like,
you don't have
that's
to
your
fucking
work to
make
do.
this about me.
Yeah. But that's, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's your work to do. And instead of, I feel like women sometimes don't want to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just like, actually, like, I'm just like, you're weird and you're an asshole. And like, I'm just going to name all the ways I do more than you in the relationship because I want to guilt you and shame you into doing
Yeah.
it. So I
I
don't
was
have
that
to be
person.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
That was a very good impression.
I was.
Yeah.
I just got. Are we still talking about this?
Oh, I was just going
Good
to give
job.
you guys your flowers on this one just because later in the comments it
Oh.
says, so first of all, as a therapist, I agree that he needs to see a therapist. His controlling and obsessive behavior is a major red flag for mental illness.
Yeah.
And then the ecologist says, this isn't about water conservation. Your husband has no impact whatsoever on the water issue. This is about obsessive and controlling behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A
So,
win's
yeah.
a win's
A win's a win's a win. I
That's
just got a notification to my phone. I have like the news app or whatever, and it says a massive trove of secret therapy records was leaked online. Was a notorious hacker behind it? And then it just talks about like their whatever. But
I'll Google it while you guys are doing this.
we don't even have to talk about it now, but it'd be something to like talk. I'm just like, now
Yeah.
my interest is peaked. Okay. Anyway.
Anyways, that's some ADHD shit.
Some
You got
real
some
ADHD.
news while we were talking, bitch.
Had to talk.
You.
It had therapy in it, and I had to talk about it.
All right, let's quick check in before we get to our topics.
Oh fuck! You first.
Okay. Ask me how I'm doing.
How you doing, bitch? Ask me how I'm doing. We really are married.
You're doing a bad
Just
job
take
today.
Activate me.
No, literally.
I am feeling better today than I've been feeling because I went to Rachel's house on Monday when she wasn't there and I had a moment. So that was great. But also the weather's good, which is like, I was texting Rachel, like, this weather feels so good, like injected in my veins. Like I literally like need this. Like I feel like a different person. Like if I could, like, if you could
Bottle
shoot
this.
up sunshine, I would be shooting it up.
Do you think that us taking vitamin D in the winter would help?
Yeah, you're supposed to.
I don't, but I need to.
I don't either.
I don't think it helps.
And
Tanning
I think
does.
it
Tanning
probably
bed
does.
does.
I'm not doing a tanning bed.
I'm not doing that.
It does help though.
I care a lot about wrinkles. Like I wear a hat.
Skin.
I wear a hat in the sun now. Even black
What?
girls get wrinkles.
I wear sunscreen.
Wear
You
sunscreen
guys look
too.
like you're fucking babies.
That's
Good
the
at it.
point.
I don't want to look.
Do you know?
I have white
do you know how
jeans.
much?
You're starting
you
to
know
look like jailbait. You're going the wrong way.
Do you know how confident I feel when people are like, when I'm like, yeah, I'll be 30.
I know. It's the best feeling.
Yeah, I
The
can't
best
relate.
feeling. I don't
but
want to age like a banana.
So I had my check-in last time or whatever where I was like personal and shared about my family. And then I had like a shame attack about that.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this, but it got a little too personal. So if you'd like to hear the rest of it, subscribe to us on Patreon. Now, back to the show.
So the Amanda Seales episode, I think, first of all, I've been wanting to talk kind of about what's been going on with Amanda because I feel like
Mhm.
recently there's been a huge wave of like media coming out that's anti-Amanda Seales.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had like moments and thoughts about like, oh, this is something we could talk about that's connecting or interesting. But I feel like when she sat down for 3 hours and had a conversation, there was like so much came up for me that I was processing and thinking about while she was talking. and we kind of broke it down into sections. And I think the first section that we wanted to talk about is the conversation around like, why did she even choose Club Shay Shay? I think a lot of people feel like that was a poor decision. That wasn't reflective of a space where maybe she was going to be able to be heard and fully expressive and seen. I think people felt confused why she would go on that show and think that that's how that was going to go. That doesn't actually reflect how I feel, but I think a lot of people felt like that.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I this isn't even necessarily how I literally believe, but I've seen a lot of conversation around her audience versus his audience, like in terms of IQ level. And I don't agree with that type of like...
As in her audience is more intelligent than his audience?
Yes, which I don't agree. I've seen a lot of that. And I saw her talk about it on her live a little bit, that she agreed with it. And like kind of, she might say she was joking about it, but I think she kind of agrees with it. I don't like that type of like...
Better than
pitting people. That feels shitty. I think what they're trying to say is her audience might have just more knowledge of the things that she's talking about in a more in-depth way. Like they're not smarter or dumber. Like,
well, I think we talk about this a lot on this podcast. We talk about this a lot on this podcast, but I think she's having like level 2 or 3 race conversations, and maybe people who watch Club Shay Shay is having level 1. And I'll just like review what this is, because I say it now like it's just a thing, but we haven't talked about it for a long time. So like a level 1 race conversation would be like, you're not even sure if you believe that race penetrates everything in this country or this world. Like if you're having a level 1 race conversation, that means that you're not sure if like every interaction you have with a white person, if how they're treating you, race is part of the conversation or part of the motivation, right? And then I would say like a level 2 race conversation would be like, I do believe that race impacts everything in this world and how people view this world. And I'm just starting to figure out kind of like how and why. And so like I feel like she was having level 2 conversations with people who are curious about like how and why race impacted her, but believe wholeheartedly that race is impacting everything. And Club Shay Shay feels like a level 1. Like and that doesn't mean that those people are stupid, but I think if you're not coming into it with that perspective, that race is integral to how Amanda is treated in the world,
you're going to always be looking out. It's her.
It seems like she's victimizing herself. It seems like it's an excuse.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of part of the clash. And I want to cite like who I got that from, but keep talking. I'm going to look.
Well, and first maybe like we can back up and just say who she is a little bit.
Yeah, why don't you tell?
So I actually really liked the way he introduced her, and I wish I had written it down, but she's an author, she's a comedian,
I remembered Racially Conscious Collaborative, and I did a training with them about how to do sustainable DEI work, and they gave me that framework to
We should actually have a thing and talk about that. I'd be interested.
But there we go.
You actually, I feel like, have been watching her long. Do you want to give her introduction? I feel like you know her better, actually.
I just feel...
Or know more about her.
So Amanda Seales like started out as a child star on Disney, which probably wouldn't have been relevant and would have been something like fun that she told at a party if she hadn't have continued to be successful. So she did a lot of things in hip hop, was very connected to that world, was very connected to maybe Sirius Radio, and was doing like a lot of interviews that were really cool, and then released her own music. She's also like has a master's degree in African American studies, has been very, very passionate, I feel like, about Black issues. And one of the things that's been kind of controversial, not necessarily to Black people, but just like in terms of her in a media space, is that she has taken on like what's happening to the Palestinian people as kind of a Black issue, like a global Black issue. And so,
and has really like, people have like, you know, she's kind of like a source for news for people who are like not Palestinian, I think.
And I don't think she's necessarily, I've never heard her say like Palestinian people are Black, but she's just very like knowledgeable about how like since the beginning of kind of Israel's formation, that there has been a lot of like Black radicals in quotes, who like have supported the Palestinian movement, and basically this notion of like how all of our freedom is tied together, and like we can't ignore oppression across the globe. And like
she talks about like the diaspora and how we're all connected, and kind of like this interlocked like framework and things like that.
So sorry, just for context.
And
so you guys are both fans, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what do her critics within the Black community, what would they say about her? Like, what's a knock on her?
There's a lot of different knocks on her, and we're going to get into them. But I think one of the big ones is that she's colorist. I think there's a lot of things going around that she's unlikable.
Which is the name of her new tour.
And hard to work with. And I feel like that's the feedback and criticism.
And kind of continually throughout this, Shannon Sharp, who's like the interviewer, is kind of asking these questions of, well, Amanda, why do you think they don't like you? Amanda, why don't you do this? And she kind of responds with silence or kind of responds with like, well. And the thing that I wish that she had broken down a little bit more is breaking down the unlikable piece about like breaking down why it's like racial, about like her being aggressive or kind of like that kind of like stereotype.
Hold on, wait, pause. I want to go back to the introduction that we can jump right into it.
You're right.
I just want to finish and say like her big things that she's done is she was on Insecure, which was like the Black show while it was on. Like the show we were all tuning in to watch. The thing. And she was a stuck-up light-skinned girl in that show, so it perpetuates the narrative. And then she's like a successful comedian who I feel like tours, and a lot of her base is Black. Like most of her base is Black.
And she has a podcast.
And she has a podcast called Small Doses, and she's written a book. And her podcast, I feel like, has been on for years and gotten progressively, I think, more vulnerable and interesting. And she's kind of, I think right now trying to figure out like, yes, I am a comedian, I do comedy, but also like maybe people tuning into Instagram or these things to see, quote, comedy isn't exactly what I'm giving out into the universe and like giving out to other people, is because I'm kind of taking a more like serious political stance.
Like a thought leader in a lot of ways. Yeah.
And so like there's a lot of controversy around her because she makes, I feel like, really bold, divisive, like decisive.
It makes people feel uncomfortable.
Divisive.
Thank you. Statements that people feel are divisive. Like one of the things that people kept bringing up is she tweeted basically judgment towards like, if you have Jordans but don't have a passport, I'm judging you. Like kind of this notion of like people have their priorities.
This classist type of like to it.
But then like what ends up happening, I feel like, because she's been under the microscope for so long, is that like now it sparks like debates on Black Twitter about whether she's anti-Black and like whether she's elitist and like not everybody can get a passport. And like she's literally like explained in this interview like this dude I was seeing said some dumb shit that made me think of this tweet, and I tweeted it because it was funny.
And she breaks it down from like a very like, they don't want us here. Black people should have your passport so you can get the fuck away if you need to. Fair. But I think this is kind of like, it's that rigidity kind of like, you need, your delivery matters a little bit.
So anyway, she goes on Club Shay Shay after like all these articles are coming out. And like the thing I think that was really upsetting to her, as she articulated it, is that like the attacks are coming from Black spaces, which makes sense because the Black spaces are the spaces that are consuming her content. I'm sure there's a lot of white women, but doing it as well. But like still. And so like, she was feeling like I ride for my community because she is a huge advocate for Black people. And like, yet I'm being constantly attacked. And like, she went on Club Shay Shay and had like this 3-hour conversation, kind of divulging a lot, I feel like, personal information and insight into like her perspective on these rumors that have been spinning for years. And I think Shannon Sharp, as an older Black man, was doing older Black man shit.
It was very generational.
Yes. And people were frustrated because they felt like you didn't need to do all this. Like you didn't need to go here and put yourself in this position. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. She could have, like she did an interview with these other 2 Black people, and I feel like she could have done an interview with them, or she could have gone to a different platform and had maybe a more nuanced discussion where she's not having to explain herself all the time, maybe. And I do understand why this is a platform that has a lot of buzz around it right now. People have been going on to kind of like truth tell. Like Cat Williams was on here, like a bunch of other like really big, Monique was on here, and a couple other things have gotten really big. So from a media standpoint, it's kind of a smart choice. People are going to tune in. Like this gets people to come to her special. Like it's a strategic move. I don't think this was like her preferred mode of like talking to somebody, but I feel like she appreciates Black culture. She appreciates him in this space. Like she's not shitting on that. And I kind of appreciate that too. Like she's going to something that our community is tuning into him right now.
Yeah.
She didn't pick somebody who was, a different thought leader or whatever. Like his space he has a lot of wide berth. Other outlets are tuning in to watch him and reporting on him. ESPN talks about him. Like Brilliant Idiots talks about him. Like people are going to be talking about this interview.
Sounds ballsy that she went to take on her critic, like directly her critics kind of.
Yeah, she did.
And she went there.
And here's the thing that I like about it is I feel like there has become this culture. I don't think it's a Black culture thing. I think it's like a liberal, I don't even want to say liberal because and that makes me think of white people specifically, and I'm not really saying that. There's this, it does,
It
right?
does to me too.
does.
Yeah, it does. And but there's this feeling of like, I should never have to explain myself. And like, why would you go on a space where you would explain yourself? And I'm like, because she made it really clear she wanted to be understood. And if she just went with somebody who always has level 2 race conversations, she would have never had to explain to the level 1 people.
Yes.
And I feel like the level 1 people are the people who don't get her. The level 2 people see her.
The rest of us are
You
with
took
it.
the thoughts right out of my head.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you go to the space where people don't quite understand you and have somebody who has their perspective ask you the question so that you can fill in the gaps directly?
Exactly. And she did it.
She did.
She did it. And she did it. I thought she did it wonderfully. And for most of the part.
There was one thing that Shannon Sharp said that made me actually angry. I don't know how you felt about him during the interview. I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
But there was one part that made me actually angry, which was she had told a story about basically feeling singled out because she was correcting this white teacher and the white teacher's response was out of proportion to the situation and how she felt it was racial. By the way, she grew up in Orlando, Florida. So in the 80s. And he says to her, "I'm sorry you experienced that as racism." And it irritated the shit out of me because it reminded me of something
Who says that? Black man says
someone who doesn't believe you would say.
it's gaslighting.
Like, I'm sorry you experienced that as that. And it was shortly after he had been pushing her and kind of questioning whether or not it was race related. Was kind of like, a Black woman would have been mad if you corrected her too, and not really hearing the point of like the way in which this was blown out of proportion is the issue. And the way in which none of the Black people around me would name that it was blown out of proportion was an issue.
It was, and he did it another time when she gave an example about kind of having issues with some white kids, and she was like, she asked him point blank, "Do you think that they were racist?" And he said, "Well," and he didn't want to put that on them. He was like, "Well, they were kids," and so that is also one of those like that's like a level 1 like racism conversation.
I think it's
like,
level 1. Like, I really think level 1 is like, I don't think that there's anybody in this world, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that can honestly say to themselves, racism doesn't exist at all. I don't think so. I really don't. And so I think most of the people are at level 1, and level 1 is like, how overt does it have to be for me to believe you? Like, for some people, you really have to call somebody a nigger, hard R. Not even nigger, hard R, for them to be like, that was racist.
He's from
like, even if you didn't do the hard R, they'd be like, they were just rapping the song, or they were just doing the thing, or they were just modeling how you talk. Like, that's how far it has to go for some people.
And he's doing the generational thing where it's like, it's not everybody, it's just some people. He wasn't acting on it. That's just like their, it's just a couple people here and there. So it's pervasive.
Yes.
It's all of us.
The thing that really disappointed me about this interview, and this has nothing to do with Amanda, she didn't do anything wrong, but like, the thing that I made up about her, she never said this, but in my head, I made up a story about her that she didn't care about how other people felt about her.
She said she was deeply sensitive.
And so for her to get on there and be like, I actually care that people are making up stories about me. I actually care that people are running my name through the dirt. It made me really disappointed. But that's my own personal shit, because like, I would love to aspire to be somebody who like doesn't care. And so like, the fact that I place that on her, I don't even necessarily think she ever said that. The fact that I place that on her and she was like, "No, I do give a fuck. I'm not a sociopath." I was like, duh.
Sociopath was the wrong choice of words.
I didn't think so.
No, that's exactly what it is.
I don't
There's
think
something
so.
in the fucking middle between not caring and like.
But she's still being her authentic self. She is in the middle. She's caring and still being herself.
That's
That is
true.
in the middle.
That's true.
That is the sweet spot, is like having
For her,
some kind of awareness for everyone. To be authentic
I'm saying
and
that's what
to be able to take in what
that's
people
what
say.
No. I'm saying like I was
her.
thinking out loud. Yes.
Okay, people pleaser. For her, you don't have to be authentic. Fuck that. You don't have to do that.
Wait, I think I misunderstood what you said.
I said that I feel like she is in the sweet spot of how much she cares, because even though it bothers her, she's still authentic.
Yes.
So
that's
is
for
this.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I said that is when you're like, no. I'm like, no, it is.
I thought never
It doesn't
mind.
matter.
Yeah, never mind. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, so
Yes.
I like think she is in the sweet spot, and I just still have this childish part of me that wants to feel like the sweet spot is like, you wouldn't care. But of course you care.
Of course you care.
But I was so disappointed. I was like, no. She's like the auntie who don't give a fuck, but you give a fuck.
I know, because everybody gives a fuck, especially at this fucking level. And she said she's an artist. I mean, I've heard you say, like, you have an artist brain. Like, you're an artist. Like, you can't be that and, like, not care. Like, you're putting out your thing for consumption. You want people to.
Nobody does the arts who doesn't care.
Right.
It's all a fucking.
That's what we were talking about, a person who claims that they can do art and don't care. And it's like, that's not authentic and real.
That's not real at all.
Like, that's not real at all. So, like, and it's like Erykah Badu. I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like she's this academic. And so people assume academics are, like, always factual. But she's also, like, she's a creative. Like,
yeah. It's not even that. It's just like, I think, again, I made up a story about her, and probably the story is because of how loudly she speaks her truth, even though she's constantly being pulled down. She must not care, or I figured out a way to have it not face her in a significant way. And that's not true. She was being really open about the fact that it deeply impacts her mental health when people are saying things that are untrue. Like people misunderstanding her is a trigger, is what it sounds like.
Being believed.
The next thing is that she shared that she has autism. I thought she was saying she had a diagnosis, but Rachel said she went on her live and she didn't say that it was a formal diagnosis.
And in this, he asked her, he kind of tried to get it out of her. And she said, I recently was diagnosed.
Yeah.
But she didn't say, and I actually peeped that. She didn't say by who or clinically.
Yeah.
I'm Googling it right now.
I think she was self-diagnosed, which isn't
she was diagnosed by her therapist. And you know that all of us, by the way, autism testing is like very expensive and it's very hard to get. Mm-hmm. The older you get, the less they want you to get it, because it's kind of like, unless you're not high functioning, which if somebody looked at Amanda's life, they would say she's high functioning. Like, don't even waste your money. Don't get it. There's no point, right? And so I'm not discrediting it. And as a therapist, like I think I could very clearly be like, this person has autism. However, I wouldn't give them a diagnosis because I'm not certified to do some of the clinical testing trials that psychologists and psychiatrists do to verify their gut feelings about autism. You don't have to do that, but it's seen as more legitimate to do that. Yeah. And some services require you to have that. So there is like spectrums and kind of like, yes, I can tell you I think you have this, but unless you want to go pay a bunch of money to get the formal testing, you might not get the services and support for this that you want.
And that's really the purpose of the clinical diagnosis by a psychiatrist or a psychologist, is to be able to get maybe services to get specific treatment or whatever it is.
And the part that was super interesting is that Rachel and I kind of talked about this, and you know, we have different perspectives on it. Rachel's not sure if she thinks she has autism. I wouldn't even say you're like 100% no, but like,
I can take that stance.
This is where therapy becomes an art. And I know that people hate this because it's like medical and procedural and all of these things.
Art, bitch.
But this is where therapy becomes an art, because when you do the work long enough, you start to get a feeling. I know this sounds crazy, but you start to get a feeling for certain diagnoses. And the thing you get a feeling for is when somebody's neurodivergent, which means their brain functions differently than other brains. They don't just have this diagnosis that makes them behave a little differently. Their brain functions differently, and you can start to tell in the way they interact with you.
Which is what he tried to argue down. It was so painful to watch.
What do you mean by that?
She literally said...
You have to describe it. Remember, not everybody watched.
Right, sorry. There was this moment they had where she literally says that. She goes, my brain functions differently. When she's talking not just in neurodivergency, but specifically with autism. And she's like, it is on scans. My brain looks differently. And he goes... But just because your brain works differently, does that mean that you have autism? And it's like you can see her look at him like, nigga.
Yeah.
Is that what you just said? And he's like, well, just because your brain works differently, does that mean you have something wrong with you? And I'm like, that's like a level 1 mental health discussion.
Yeah,
I feel like. Where do I even start? So anyway,
well, because I don't think that people perceive people with autism as people who have any kind of social skills at all or are able to be successful in the world. Like, that's not something that people perceive.
It's very stereotyped.
And so, why did you think maybe she didn't have autism? What in your therapist's gut? Right? We don't know her, but like, what in your therapist's gut from watching her all these years makes you question whether her autism diagnosis is accurate? And I think what you said to me is like, yes, I think she's neurodivergent. I don't know if her neurodivergence is autism. Yes. And that's what you were saying.
The way she talks, her mannerisms, the way she the way she talks about herself definitely lets me know she's had like a different brain experience, a different experience relationally with people that makes her not atypical. And And I said this to Javae of, I'm not like an autism, like I'm not super well read in it. I can like kind of gut feeling if people had it, but it's very rudimentary and based on probably a lot of like just basic stuff. The way I've seen other interviews of hers where she's very personable and very relational and picks up on cues in the room. And like, you can see her kind of like, oh, I got that. Oh, I caught that. And for me, that is not how I experience the people with autism that I have in my life or that I've met clinically. And I do think there's something racialized about it that I don't quite have language for, but like her being a Black woman and being this brilliant and being this smart, like why does it have to be categorized under exceptionality in terms of like autism? Because I think there's also that lilt to it that like, well, she's so exceptional, it has to be because of this brain chemistry thing, which it might be. I'm not even opposed to that. And I do know that people with autism, like a way to, what is it called? Their mask. She might be, she's really good at masking maybe. Like I totally get that. And she said something specifically in this where she's only misread situations twice in her life. That's probably like a gross like underestimation. But her saying that was like impactful because.
Well, what she said. Go ahead.
No. Go.
I was gonna say. I think what she said was like she misread 2 situations in her life where she almost got beat up or whatever.
Yes. Right. It was very specific to like her getting in like big trouble or something like that. And to me, like as a mental health, I would have wanted to know like more frequency about like really, is it just 2? Because that seems like you would have gotten your ass beat way more if you were like that unaware. And it sounds like you were deeply aware of tons of things in the room. And that also is neurodivergent in terms of like maybe more an ADHD symptom that I think of like being deeply empathic or being deeply like your system is so overwhelmed by what's going on. Like that sounds more ADHD to me.
Yeah.
So
I've got all the criteria memorized if you guys want to know.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I have like, and one of the main ones they say, and let me just go back in my memory here, but persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across
multiple
multiple
contexts. Would you like to pull
contexts.
up the links from the DSM, Gabe?
Oh, did you share those? Oh, cool. Thank you. That does make it easier.
I don't know. Maybe.
Wait, I want to hear. I want
him to pull it up while we're talking because I want to talk about it. But
so that was my
thoughts
and
your gut feeling.
My gut feeling. And I just want to say that I do think that self-diagnosis as an adult, as a like with autism, like I know enough about it that like that is a viable thing and like
you
a
think
real
it's
thing.
Legitimate that you could diagnose yourself.
I think it's legitimate that you can look and be like really resonate. I don't know about you can diagnose yourself because it's such a clinical thing, but I think that you can be like, whoa, I might really have this thing and I don't have the resources to go get testing, but I really think that this is like a thing that I identify with. I do think that there's like
validity in that. Yeah, I agree.
But it is not like a clinical diagnosis. And I think that if you wanted more validity, you should go get a diagnosis if possible.
Can you be deeply emotionally intelligent and be autistic?
And that's what I
think
don't
that's
know
Rachel's
about.
question.
And that's my question.
Yeah, because that's the basis of being a comedian is that you understand people's like behaviors and emotions, you know?
And I do have a friend. I do have a friend who's also a therapist who I trust deeply, and I've had really deep emotional conversations with her, and they are self-diagnosed with autism and talk much like this. Like they have a lot of personal experience where they're like, I this is how I think about the world. This is my worldview. Mm-hmm. And I don't really challenge them on it a whole lot, but I do wonder, like, you're pretty connected to me as far as like so I don't know. I don't know.
I guess self-diagnosis.
Is that person gay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've talked about it. It plays into my theory, so of what I want to talk about. Okay. So First, I'll just say my thesis, my overall point, and then we can go into the autism specifics, and I can like give like
some facts.
No, I was gonna say I could give like plain language for what they're saying up there, so that it's not just like fucking rhetoric.
Love it.
So I can do that. I work with a lot of kids with autism, but also what I was gonna say is the reason why I think she could be autistic is because, and again, I know that there's something off about us just even like speculating off of somebody talking on the thing, but it's a fucking podcast.
She put it out there.
Running our mouth.
Yeah.
The reason why I think she could be autistic is because usually with people with her level of intelligence, just period, her level of intelligence, they aren't black and white concrete thinkers. They don't see the world like it has to be one way or this way. There's a right and a wrong. There's a good and a bad. There's an evil and a pure. And that is how she talks about the world. She talks about the world in black and white concretes. Everything is literal. What people say is what they mean. What people do is who they are. You know, if you don't believe racism exists, you're evil. You know, if you don't care about the conflict in Gaza, you're evil. And sure, those are moral stances and you can go there, but the way that she talks about the world is so concrete and she is so intelligent. And most people who are that intelligent are flexible in their thinking. They can step into the gray, they can see the gray, they can read the gray, they feel comfortable in the gray. That's part of why they're so smart. Mm-hmm. And so she's really smart and she is high EQ, emotional intelligence, because she can read the room. She's very perceptive of what's going on. But that could also be because girls are socialized to care about their environment and their social skills. And she's probably known from a really young age she lacks in that way. Mm-hmm. And so she's overcompensating by paying attention to everybody else. So there's a piece of me that feels like she's missing this really big skill that's important to me, which is like being flexible. Mm-hmm. It also sounds like when she describes how she works, she needs everything to be concrete and the same. Like she very much needs to go onto set and know exactly what she's walking into, know exactly what's expected of her. And she seems very dysregulated or embarrassed when that's not how it goes down. Or when she thought she was following a rule, but then the rule ended up being wrong, or like that she thought there was a correct way to do this, but actually no. Like when she talks about being on Issa's set, like, yes, part of it was not being protected, but the other part of it was like being sure to her bones that there was a right and a wrong way to do things, which is not how I think a lot of people like her see the world. She's so educated.
She's so educated.
And she's so black and white, which is so different than what I normally see with highly educated people. Now, prior to this autism diagnosis, I attributed it to her having strong opinions and that being interesting, because it is interesting to have strong opinions and to stand on them. And she has the education to do it.
And she's emotional about it. She gets on camera and cries often about the Gaza conflict. Like you get passion from her often, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So like the three big things that are like overall that you're looking for criteria wise is like really like you could go into like the details about it. But the big thing criteria wise is like you're looking for like deficits in social interactions and communication skills. And so like that can be like reading social cues. That can be like making eye contact. That's one we hear a lot in autism is like they don't make eye contact. That is like you can't read other people's body language or you're like struggling with that. You don't give like your face doesn't match your internal emotions for some people with autism. So like if they're happy, they're not smiling, which ends up creating issues in social interactions because people want to know how you feel about them. They want validation. They want you to mirror what they're doing. And that's not what's naturally going on. I think another piece is that when you interact with a lot of people with autism, they have very specific interests and they don't give a fuck about anything else that's not their interest and they can't pretend to care. It's like if you ever met a kid who like is not 8 but 15 and playing Roblox and like can only talk about Roblox and only cares about Roblox, only wants to do Roblox and like will only hang out with friends who will play Roblox and like only talks about Roblox at dinner. Like very persistent
and gets mad when you don't want to talk about it.
Correct. Yeah. And thinks what you think is dumb because it's not one of their interests. So like what she talks about is like she's very intense about gymnastics. You know, of like that was her thing and that's all she cared about and that's all she wanted to do and like all of this. And so I don't know if it replicated that level of intensity, but often I think when girls, especially at a young age, get really, really into something, like we kind of write it off as normal as long as it's a girl thing. So like if a girl only ever wanted to play with dolls, okay. If a girl only ever wanted to do unicorns, we'd be like, okay, right? Like a lot of what gets people diagnosed is their behavior is irritating and frustrating for the adults in their life until they figure out what's going on.
Right. And she talks about that a lot, how she was easy, teachers liked her, adults liked her, but for the most part. And she was like kind of in situations where she was pushed to thrive and pushed to be smart. And so those things were celebrated, whereas normally kids aren't kind of celebrated in that way. She was precocious and stuff.
Yeah. The second thing that's really important, and this is the thing about it, is like like, how do I put this? There's a scale to this. It isn't just like, oh, like you have this and you have autism. You could have some of these things and not have autism.
A spectrum,
And,
right?
Yeah, thank you. It's a spectrum. And so like based on how much it impacts your life and your ability to function in the world is where you are on the spectrum. That's how we decide how you fall on the spectrum. But like, I think what we often see in boys with autism is that they aren't socially motivated. And that's part of why they stand out. You stand out because you're not like your peers and caring about what your peers think. Mm-hmm. And so to not have girls show up that way, it kind of takes them off the radar in a lot of ways. The other thing is they have like rigidity and the restrictive repetitive behaviors or interests. So the Roblox is like the interest thing, but like also the repetitive behaviors is like kind of where the stimming comes into play. I've ever heard of somebody doing something that creates stimulation for themselves. We call it stimming. And so like maybe a kid will go on a swing for 3 hours and literally have a meltdown when they have to get off the swing because they're engaged in an activity that feels good for them and their brain has a hard time switching tasks. That's one of the things that's also really hard with autism is like a lot of kids struggle to like, okay, now it's time to transition, and they really lose control of their body when they have to transition.
It's all you see in like parents putting their kids into therapy for my child struggles with transitions.
Yeah. Or like inflexibility of kind of like, and don't already like assign it to your kid because I was going to say, because a lot of highly intelligent kids mimic symptoms of autism younger in those ways of being rigid and easily dysregulated because they take in more information than they can process because they're smart and perceptive. So they're overwhelmed by what they're taking in. Yeah. So that's part of that. Yeah. Like gifted.
And obsessive because they're interested, whatever. So I've been called autistic too by a peer where they said, I think you're on the spectrum. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah. I don't think. But.
The other thing that's different about like the brain, the way their brain works is like they respond differently to stimulation. So like how someone else would take in a light or a sound or a smell or a texture maybe is not how someone with autism would take it in. And then when it's unpleasant, it's very heightened. And so like there's a lot of people who have children with autism, they can't figure out what to get them to eat because like their sensory is so strong, right? So there's all these different ways that it comes in, and I don't know enough about her to know if she's at home stimming. I have no idea, right? Like she could be masking, as Rachel said. The third thing that's really important is it happens since childhood, and she had said in the interview that she basically sent a list of all these things to her mom, and her mom was like, you were like that as a kid. So all of that to say, like, it's very, very possible. And this whole like self-diagnosis thing, I think, is going to be used to like kind of discredit her. And I told Rachel initially when she told everyone she had autism, I felt irritated.
Yes.
And I think Rachel thought it was because I didn't believe her, but I felt irritated because I felt like she wasn't sharing her autism from a place of empowerment. She was sharing it to be understood.
Yes.
And I didn't like that. I was like, fuck them. That's like me having everyone on the internet come for me, which I've never experienced. And so I don't judge you for giving in, but like, it's like everyone on the internet coming for me. And then I just decided to tell everyone about my PTSD diagnosis. Like, you don't have to explain yourself to that level. You don't have to explain yourself to that level of sharing your diagnosis you just found out a week ago so that people will stop attacking you. Fuck them.
Fuck them and stand on it anyway.
Yes.
I don't want to attack you guys as person. Because I know this is sensitive, but I just want to put this out there.
Yeah.
If you are going on that platform that you know is like high attention, right? Mm-hmm. And you're in this controversy, isn't it a little like to say that you have something like that without a diagnosis? If it indeed does come out, because I Googled it and really only found one outlet that said that she didn't, and so I'm not saying that's the case.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if that happens, isn't that a little
like irresponsible?
I mean, not only irresponsible, but like it discredits a lot of shit you say in a way, right? Like you're telling people you had a diagnosis, a mental illness.
Yeah.
To defend yourself.
Go ahead. There you go.
I noticed that a couple times, and it stuck with me when he might ask her a question and she doesn't give a direct answer. And I feel like I'm picking up on it maybe because people do that in therapy. It's like you ask a question and it's like, or you do that with me as a friend when you're like, that you just read me a little bit. And I feel like there were moments when because she paused and said that, yes, I have this diagnosis, right? But she was picking her words carefully, which is fine. Like being careful about it is okay. But I think she knows that there's going to be pushback about not going the full route if that is what she did.
I think not getting formally diagnosed actually lands with her brand, so I think she'll be fine because I think in her sphere, like I think yes, like the general public will tear her up, but I think like in her level 2 race conversation audience that she has, like being able to say like I think like getting diagnosed as like colonizer bullshit and like I don't know, I have to pay to have these white people make a stamp on what I feel like is happening with me just so I have an explanation to try to understand how to like better interact in the world. Like I think her fans would buy that. Like I don't think her fans wouldn't buy
I'm sure
that.
fans, but like, you know, to me that is, it just pushes her further into that corner and makes her you know, which is unfortunate if she's as smart as she is, or, you know, as you guys are saying and everything.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think that like that's kind of also where I felt like this really inner turmoil when I was watching her, because that is how I perceive her, as somebody who's okay with being in the corner and labeled as a whatever, like a crazy or, you know, angry, hateful, bitter, like not that she likes it or celebrates it or anything, but that it's not so impactful. So that's why I was kind of like, and I guess she already shares kind of her whole world with everyone, but I was just like something that new, that integral to who you are as a person, just felt like she cared about explaining herself, which didn't match her brand to me.
And it's interesting because she, you know, she cited Holly or Pete as like somebody who she connected with and like talked about talking to other people with that diagnosis or kids with that diagnosis. And I was on Twitter and people were kind of tearing into that specifically because Holly, do you know who that is? She's a black actress, kind of like from the 90s.
do, from the 90s. Yeah.
Okay. She's gorgeous and has like a talk show now or something. And she's affiliated with Autism Speaks, which is actually a hate group. And like it's, you know, it's the one that like Tony Braxton was
like
on
a vaxxing
for a long time.
one.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they like spread like disinformation. It's been proven. They're kind of like they're like, what is it called? Like the cancer organizations. They're just not great. And so she was talking about that and people were trying to get on her. And then other people came in and were talking about how, yeah, but she's like new in this and like give her some grace and she's allowed to grow. So I think it's like, it's even interesting just like how those conversations get like micro drawn. Like, what type of disability person is she going to be? Like, it just opens it up into so much other shit.
The other thing that she talked about that was interesting, well, there's two more things, but one was she was speaking on like basically how she's labeled as a colorist and that she doesn't believe that she's a colorist. And that was like a lot of, oh, you want to pull it up?
Oh yeah, I was just putting up the Autism Speak like controversy. So it's like the Susan G. Coleman thing is what I'm seeing. So more like that.
Like a Ponzi scheme type thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
And she just basically was saying like, I'm not a colorist. Like I understand like my privilege from being light skinned / like, I don't believe I'm better than other people because of my skin color, but
well, she was like, I am without a doubt not colorist. And it's just like, you know, colorism lives in all of us. Homophobia lives in all of us. Racism lives in all of us.
I was just going to say, like, I don't think she'd let a white person say I'm without a doubt not racist.
Yeah, that was a little.
But she brought up this part that I think a lot of people who are lighter skinned talk about, and which is, and I think maybe because we both have white mothers and we're constantly attacked, that we're maybe more adept at this conversation or used to this conversation. But basically two things were coming up with the colorism comments, which is like people are using my skin tone to like question my blackness / I'm being bullied for being light skinned at times. And so like, how do I talk about that experience without discrediting the experience of people who are darker skinned than me? And my whole intuition was like, babe, you don't. Nobody cares. That's like what we're telling white people. We're telling white people, like, we don't give a fuck.
You have to give up that part.
You do.
You just have to give up that part.
You do. And if you truly believe in all of the privilege that you've gotten from what you look like, because you also have pretty privilege. Not saying that people who aren't light skinned don't. I'm not saying that, but you have a lot of privilege.
Both of those things.
Yeah, she has both of those things going for her. And so like I feel like that's something that you process with other people who look like you or with a therapist. Like that isn't something that other Black people need to understand, take in, or hear or give you anything for, because
you do have to take your licks.
You have to take your licks. And that's how you feel about white people. It's like, you know, we talk about white people. It's like, why should I have to explain it to you? Why should I have to do all these things, you know? And it's like,
part of having the privilege and saying, I know I have these privileges means you suck up that part.
Yes.
That is part of that part. It's not a real thing. It's not even. And she says, you know, I recently became enlightened to that, like, reverse colorism isn't real.
Yeah.
And I was like, so she's still kind of like sitting with being that she gets real privilege in that way.
And that's where I feel like concrete.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like this.
Rigid.
It's rigid. It's rigid because it's like, it's about fairness.
Yeah.
And since when is any racial conversation about fairness?
Yes.
We're never talking about fairness when we're talking about race.
That's level 1.
That's level one. Yes, exactly.
That's so funny.
And so like it doesn't match how articulate she is about what
Everything.
it means to be Black and everything. So that kind of threw me. I have like grace for that, but I was just like, you're still not there. And, you know, people are questioning her Blackness because she's light skinned, and like her response is like, well, I don't have a white parent, so don't try me. And
she tried to do like the whole genealogy thing, and once you're doing that, you lost.
You lost.
You lost.
And also, like, damn, people are really going on the. So, are we not part of the diaspora anymore?
I think Black people are really like. There's like people that I follow that I'm surprised when they say, you know, like if I can look at you and you don't look Black, like I'm like I look Black, but they would look at me and be like,
we getting tossed out.
we're getting tossed out.
I just heard some shit recently, like
think we're
from
getting tossed out.
other Black people that I'm friends with, and
I'm upset because I'm writing for y'all. What the fuck?
my jaw was dropped. It was about like giving blood or something like that. So that's why
They
you
don't
can't,
want the half-breed blood.
that you actually cannot get like. There's a certain blood type that it doesn't jive with. That anyone who's inherently
jive.
mixed, jive. Okay, unfortunate choice of words.
It's okay.
I'll have to Google it real quick, but I mean, they said it. It seemed like it tracked scientifically, but it was just like, holy shit,
Is
that
it
seems
blood or
hateful.
bone marrow?
Bone marrow is
Is it
Okay,
blood or bone marrow?
Maybe it was, but I thought it was
Okay.
blood.
Well, because I'm like, blood is universal. Like, if I had O positive blood, or like if I was a universal donor,
Yeah.
then I could universally.
No,
get
I get
I'm
that. I'm just saying, I thought it was.
It's
I don't
no,
know.
bitch.
I know you can use me.
But yeah, you should look it up, please.
I will.
But
right now.
people are like, you're delusional for being Black, and I don't know, y'all can do that to the next generation, but I'm Black, and that's that.
Yeah, I'm
for
Black.
me personally,
No,
and like
yeah.
I acknowledge my privilege with being pretty and being light skinned and having proximity to whiteness and having white people in my corner
But I'm
who
Black.
would root for me, but I'm Black.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's like what your experience is. It's
Exactly.
not-
And also like
And the white man thinks I'm Black.
being
fuck?
being biracial.
Yeah, I like you guys because
being
you are Black. You better not be Black.
being a Black woman with a white mom is a Black experience. Like being a biracial Black kid is a Black experience. I would not have this experience of having
Of
this
otherness.
if I didn't have a white mom.
That is the best way I've heard it put. And you've never said that to me before. That was a great explanation.
So
that.
what these Black people told me this last week was
Yeah.
that mixed girls who have white moms are not as Black.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I didn't know that. I'd never heard that.
Well, you met
Blew
my
me
mom,
away.
so you know that's not true.
Yeah. sure.
I also feel like mixed girls who have white moms. I feel like a lot of mixed girls have white moms who aren't comfortable around Black people, which is a huge disservice
Crazy.
to their kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge disservice to their children.
Mhm.
And so like, I was never not in Black spaces. That was never an issue for me. So I can only imagine how
I was
out of
never.
place you would feel if you didn't have that experience. Like, what if you never had your stepmom? You would probably be a different person.
Different person. I've never gone to De La Salle. I
Yeah.
think it would have been a different person.
Yeah.
So I kind of lucked out in those like departments.
The last thing I want to talk about is she was very open about feeling like Issa Rae didn't protect her, didn't support her. And I think a big part of
She
Issa
went
Rae's
there.
brand is being pro-women, pro-Black women, pro-Blackness, for us, by us, protect our people.
I'm voting for everybody Black. That's her.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
You did not, sis.
what are your thoughts on her being open about like feeling like she wasn't supported? I feel like the stories that she
Tracks.
told me tracked.
I think it tracks. I think, and she said this, she was like, you know, she has done a lot for a lot of people. She is this, and she wasn't that for me. And so that means that she probably, you know, wasn't
Mhm.
that for other people. Like you can infer that it wasn't just her. And she talks about a specific incident where Issa told her, I was looking at you like through the lens of your character. Can you imagine hearing that? Can you imagine hearing over and over again that people don't like you based off of all these other preconceived things? I do get how frustrating that is.
Yeah, I do
Like,
believe actually because that's my experience.
No, I
actually do
I was
believe
thinking
that.
about you. No, I'm saying
People, this is what I'm saying. Like it was like people also don't like me just because of how I exist in the
I thought
world.
about you the entire time, and I wasn't going to text you this.
I've been
but
thinking. I was thought about me the entire time
Yeah,
too. I thought about me the entire time too.
You're in my notes. I wrote
People
about it.
have preconceived notions about me because I do not fit into a box, and that
Mhm.
is not acceptable. And they need to put me into a box. The box has to make sense. And if you aren't a person who sees gray, you don't get me.
People do need to put people in boxes for
They
sure.
do. And so like
That's actually why I thought she didn't like have autism, because I know you, and so much of what she was saying, I've heard you say.
and what
And I
I'm
don't
hearing
perceive you
her
as autistic.
say, I definitely don't have autism.
No, that's what I'm saying.
What
It's
I'm-
like, yeah.
What I'm hearing her say is that like she was doing things and like at times like surprised at the feedback she was getting from how she was showing up in the world. Like even the Club Shay Shay thing, like
Yes.
I wouldn't have been surprised. I would have known how it was going to go down and I would have did it anyways.
Mhm.
And that's what I put on her is that she knew how things were going down and doing it anyways. And what I'm
Mhm.
hearing her say is she's surprised when she gets backlash half the time. And she's surprised when people judge her half
and
the
that
time.
that does seem
That doesn't
blinders on,
That doesn't track with me.
I-
I'm not surprised.
yeah.
I know how it's going to go.
which is actually the intuitive piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know how it's going to go. I know that you don't like me and I'm still going to say it anyways.
Right.
And that's what I place on her is that she had that in her.
I see that.
And
Yeah, I get that. And that's why, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks.
But the stuff with Issa Rae, I think, is there a color?
I know
Is there a racial dynamic with the fact of like asking a dark-skinned woman to protect you in those spaces? Or does that not matter because she was in charge? So she was like, you're
Ooh.
infantilizing her to not ask her to take care of you because why am I going to ask her because she's black? She's in charge. I want my boss to hear my problems. Could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that's why she doesn't like her.
Why?
Because she's in charge. And that's the bitch who's making all the problems. Like from her perspective.
Yes.
That's exactly. I put on productions. They're so stressful. We had a crew of 20 people, and when one person makes any issues, it is like we are on a mission. This isn't a workplace, by the way.
Well, I have
Like
to
when you're
say-
doing creative stuff, it's
Yeah.
not a work. It's
Yeah.
like we're doing it something bigger. You know what I mean?
kind of balk at this like protect me piece, and I think this is my own internalized like stuff. I actually don't think there's an issue with it.
Mhm.
But whenever I hear like she kept on using people don't protect me, and I just was like, why would you think people would? Which is my own shit.
She said that though. She said, I know I shouldn't think this, but I do.
And even saying that is, I also balk at that because I'm like, actually, you do get to expect people to show up for you, and you do get to expect people to protect you.
Yeah.
But like expecting Issa Rae, who you don't know, expecting people,
Because she's black.
right? But like,
But that's it.
Exactly.
But that's
That-
it.
I know.
That's it.
I
It's because
know.
she's black.
and I don't like if you don't know me, I actually don't expect like.
Here's the thing. Once you
I
get
know.
into this is something that I had to learn over time. When you are in a white space and you encounter a black person, the unwritten code is you have my motherfucking back. When you are in a black space and you encounter a black person, that shit's out of the window. We are all black people here. We are all safe here. We are all doing our things here. And if other black folks don't like you, that's on you. That's how
Yes.
people feel.
Yes.
And so, like, I think she was kind of like, no, we still have the same code and community in these black spaces. And
You gotta be
that's not what I
likable.
feel in these black spaces when I go into
No,
them.
you got to be likable.
Yes, people have to like you. And I'm not saying she's not likable.
No, yes,
but
yes.
But, like, I think that's what she
You need to be
missing
missing.
in terms of, like, the thought process is, like, thinking that because we're all black, that's going to be enough to create
They're
protection.
in competition with you. They're in competition with you. And she did name that, she tried to do game nights and she tried to do all these like community building things, which is like, I like get that. And like, she was rebuffed over and over again until like kind of the last minute.
Mhm.
But I also feel like
I'm sure she knows this, but like when there's other black women and you are light skinned, there is a perception that's put on you and you are working against that perception, which is stuck up.
that's what I was going to say is like, she was like, they kept on putting like the character on her and people come up to her in the world and are like, I think you're stuck up or whatever. You have to then not prove them right, which sucks. And it's not right. And you should be able to be yourself and be fabulous.
But it's very similar of how people make assumptions around white women being Karens or white
Mhm.
women not being allies. And like, you expect them to prove they're not.
Mhm.
You expect them to prove they're allies, right?
Mhm.
And so I think like
Mhm.
we go into these spaces and there is a side eye sometimes. And does that feel fair? No, but nothing in these racial dynamics is about fairness. If we tallied up the chalkboard, you might come out on top, not with Issa, but in general, right?
Yeah, you would.
And so like they don't give a fuck.
Mhm.
That's not something that is important to them just because you're another black person. Like I said, when you're in a white space, I think it's different.
And it actually is interesting that she talks about being so perceptive and always these things and always trying to be the team player. But there, I
And
don't know. And
every time she got feedback, she struggled.
yeah,
Which is fine because it sounds
Right.
like the feedback.
I didn't know how to say that.
Yeah, but it's fine because it sounds like the feedback didn't feel fair. And that's
Yeah.
again where the rigidity is coming
Mhm.
into, is like zoom out of like the fairness in this moment. And like the party shit was the worst shit I'd heard in a long time. And,
Yeah.
and nothing about that was fair. And being humiliated is awful.
Bad.
She was humiliated publicly. That's horrible.
What's that? What's the
So
party thing?
Issa's assistant kicked her out of a party in LA in front of all these people that she was invited to.
And she was not
it
protected.
became a public thing
Okay.
that she tried to get into this party she didn't want to be into. And it ended up getting her like uninvited to some awards and like
she was like
some
blacklisted
different-
kind of because of it.
Yes. Because there was like this rumor going around that she behaved inappropriately, and the person who spearheaded all of that was Issa's assistant. And so this whole like, one of the ways she was asking Issa to protect her was to have her check her assistant. And she was kind of like, it's none of my business.
And then the assistant came out and said, well, I just did all that because I didn't like you.
So is this possible? Just for me to throw this out, because
go
to
ahead,
me,
yeah.
I feel like so certain of because of my experience running a set, right? And it's like it is so stressful because you're running so many people, and like to me, it's as simple as like people are selfish, especially in a
Yeah.
competitive Hollywood type thing,
Mhm.
and Amanda Seales just seems like an inveterate shit stirrer and difficult person, and it's like it's as simple as that.
I don't get that.
I don't get that.
You don't get that?
I don't
Okay.
get that at all. But I want to say that I can understand from the boss's perspective that shit has to get done. I get there's a bottom line. I get all that. The thing that is, I don't perceive her as a shit stirrer. I actually, she talks about being a team player and like she excelled in school. Like those things don't actually match up with what she's talking about, but she is like maybe deeply more emotional. She has a different value set. And to Javae's point, like her rigidity, it seems like is what gets her in. It's like
She
That's
seems
what I
like-
was referring to.
She, yeah, it's the rigidity. Like she seems
she
like the
expects
type
people
to be
to-
like, we're supposed to start. Sorry, we're supposed to
Yes.
start at 7 a.m.
Yes. And
Right.
Like, why didn't we start at 7 a.m., right? And so, but here's another thing that could be totally possible is that she's able to mask at work and she's not doing any of those things. And she's not connecting with the other Black women. They don't like her. And just simply by the fact that everybody's
Mhm.
pointing at her,
Yeah.
does that make it
No.
her problem? Do you
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. No, I think that's possible as well. I just, if I had to lay a bet down, I guess that's just what I
She
would say.
might
Like,
Javae said this to me about me. Like she was like, "You're the problem. You are the problem." She is the problem, but it might not be because she's difficult. It might not be because she's like this diva. It might be because she's really principled, and the principles come from whatever reason. But she's just like she really gives a fuck, and maybe like I can understand that Issa like. She has so many things going on. I also have compassion for being like the leader. I don't want to be a leader for that fucking reason. I don't want to manage people, right? And if you have to be careful of if you're like the Black person in charge, you have to be hospitable to it. You don't have the luxury to be like, well, I just put this on you because of your character. And she says, you wrote the fucking character.
That feels like a cop out because your boss can't say she doesn't like you.
Yes.
it's just a matter of like,
Yeah.
think how much pressure is on Issa Rae. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
this
sure.
is her shot, right? And it's
Yeah.
like anyone who's not on board completely, I'm sure you get unfair towards them.
Probably.
Like, it's
That's
not
weird.
that she's wrong,
That's
just
weird. If somebody pushes back or something, like a good leader doesn't do that though.
But there is this piece, and I feel like this happens at my job, so I can only imagine how it is in like the entertainment business. But it's like we all have to deal with fucked up shit, suck it up, and be quiet about it.
we all sacrifice to get here constantly.
Yeah.
Like
And so
yes.
if you care about fairness, you're like, well, I don't want to shut up and be quiet. This thing wasn't okay. I didn't
Mhm.
like this thing, and that's an inconvenience. And that's why
Mhm.
she's the cool problem, because she's the squeaky wheel.
Yes. Even just wanting rules.
Yeah.
Like wanting rules, there's fairness in a way.
She's actually saying, just tell me what the rules are so I can follow them. But if you keep changing the rules, that's confusing for me. Which,
But it's very hard to make a production consistent for someone.
And that
is the problem.
maybe
That could be
drives
it.
the problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that would be fucking impossible.
And
Like, it's so hard.
What was interesting is that she says that she works well on a production that didn't have a lot of Black people. She mentioned working with Chrissy Teigen and somebody else who I'm forgetting the name, but I know who he is. And has a lot of power. He's a white man. And like she was like, it was so easy and he was amenable. And I also think there's power dynamics in that, is that, well, he gets to be a little bit more amenable. He gets to have it a little bit easier because he has more control and power. If this is your first $100 million deal, you might be a little tight-reined about it. I'm not saying she was a good boss or anything like that, but also like
It's
giving the
great.
white man grace was for like listening to your idea was a little bit like, I don't know if that was like the
But she
anecdote
also-
she wanted to use.
Well, I also think she compared it to The View and the executive producers on The View that she also thought sucked. I don't know.
Yes.
We dove into this for so long. I don't even
Yeah.
think we have time for the protest.
That's fine. We can do it. Shit will be going on. We can talk about it next week.
All right.
It ain't ending.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not ending. It'll be more, even hotter probably.
Yeah. Anyways,
Thanks, guys.
bye. He was on it with the music.
Ah, you guys did
Way
that
to
fast
go.
again,
You did
though.
so fast.
Oh, I barely got it.
That was like a
Great
little-
show, though.
That was like a.
It's the fastest I've ever done.
This was.
Oh, did you guys see NBC? No relation to NBC.